Hypertalks. My name is Connor Clark. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager for Boneloaf, working on Gangbeasts.
It's Boneloaf?
Yes, it's Boneloaf.
I'll have to ask you where that comes from as well.
So Boneloaf is actually, it's our word for a really, a video game staple, which is those edible bits of meat on bones that you eat when, you know, to pick up health or something, like in Streets of Rage or those beat 'em up games, right? You know, that's something you pick up, you know exactly, you can imagine in your head. So we've always been fascinated by those. Boneloaf was started by three brothers, the Brown brothers, who basically grew up in a seaside town in Middlesbrough and Redcar, and played video games together. And they love beat 'em ups, and they love playing beat 'em ups together. And that's how Gangbeasts came about. Gangbeasts was their version of a beat 'em up, right? They wanted to make a beat 'em up together.
Yep.
And it was all about crowding around a TV, picking up a controller and just playing with your mates or with your brothers or siblings, and beating each other up, but in a really fun slapstick way. And that's how it started.
And the result, as I've seen from playing myself, is utter chaos. It's
Absolutely.
Complete mayhem.
Yeah. So it's funny because Gangbeasts looks like quite a relatively simplistic game, right? It's big, bright, colourful characters. It's actually got an incredibly sophisticated physics system that, you know, has been really tricky to emulate, obviously. As you tell, there's been lots of games that have this kind of wobbly genre, right? They're wobbly characters. And they're not easy to make. They frequently break. You have to play around with physics all the time. We see it all the time whenever we push a new update live, you know, something in the physics engine will break ever so slightly. But that's just because it is very sophisticated. So we have to be very careful when we're building it.
So far, it seems to be a good balance between sort of comical and functional. You could have struck that pretty well.
We found that the physics allows for a kind of really natural style of comedy to come out in the game. In the, you know, we could never script the funny things that happen in Gangbeasts, the funny, chaotic things that happen. It just happens naturally, and that's the beauty of the game. And I think that's why the game has had its, you know, it's been around for as long as it has been.
And there's essentially two versions in a way, aren't there? There's one that you can buy yourself for your computer, and is it console as well, or is it just PC?
Yeah, absolutely. PC, console, Nintendo Switch. All that.
Yeah, so the one that you can buy and play at home with friends and there's also a special version for shows.
Yes.
The version that we can all play, how does that function with online play, all that sort of thing? How does your matchmaking work and all that? Can you run us through how it works as a multiplayer experience?
So obviously we do have online matchmaking, so you can play together. You play together up to 8 players. We don't have cross-play implemented just yet, but we do want to bring in cross-play into the game. So we implemented online. It was actually an afterthought in the game originally. We always wanted to make a game that everybody sat around, right, and played together. And when we first released it in alpha back in 2014 or even some playtests in 2013, people absolutely loved it and kept asking us, where's online multiplayer? I really want to play online multiplayer. So we're like, oh, well, maybe we can figure it out. Obviously, the physics are quite hard to kind of match up along all the different clients. But we found a solution, and we did add online multiplayer actually pretty early on in the game's life cycle in the end. And you still play online to this day. You play up to 8 players and play 4 players at home. But like I said, this special event build, we've specifically built just for today for A Maze Sheffield, but we do want to kind of expand it and see where else we can take it. This is a 20-player version. Obviously, we can't really add that into players at home. Most players probably don't have 20 controllers. It's actually it's been hard for us to find 20 controllers that work. But yeah, at the moment, it seems to be working and everyone's having a good time.
I guess that's something that can work really well for events and parties and all sorts of things, like weddings, anything like that, really. You could actually sort of hire a game like this out with the controllers ready to run.
We're inspired by an arcade game called Killer Queen. So Killer Queen was created by some developers as like they wanted to make it a really exclusive game. So they built a certain amount of arcade cabinets and distributed those to game bars all across the US. And then what they found was that people kind of quite organically like built tournaments and leagues and had teams and like they had training nights, right? And then at the end of like every year or every season or whatever, all these different kind of groups from all across the US would get together into one place and continue like have a big Killer Queen tournament. And we love that kind of natural, organic style of esports, right? Now Killer Queen never had a retail version. It has since. It's had a retail version called Killer Queen Black, which is great, but it is still a different game to the original Killer Queen. And we've always wanted, going back to our roots of this like local multiplayer, getting a game to play, everyone to play around a TV screen together, we've always wanted to see how we can replicate that, or what we can do with Gangbeasts to replicate that. And this is the result of that. We have lots more ideas as well, but first things first, we want to get this big, massively local multiplayer version. And that's, like I said, it comes back to our roots. It's what we want to do as game developers.
Yeah, it's also something that's sort of been, it seems to have been growing, the idea of coming back to couch co-op, because obviously, I'm like 40 or 41 now, I always forget. But so all of my early multiplayer gaming was sat with other people, either at, micro machines with 4 controllers, 2 plugged into the cartridge on the Mega Drive, or that sort of thing. And then it did sort of disappear for a bit.
Absolutely.
And I always thought that was a real shame, like having to actually go online with multiple consoles and TVs in a room to play with your friends. So I'm a big fan of this sort of return to purposefully social gaming, and obviously making 20 players is a really big way to do
We love events, man. We love just bringing people together. That's kind of what that's where we see like the joy and value of games, in that they can bring people together. And in our way, there's nothing better than bringing people together in an actual space and playing with them. We've been really lucky to take Gangbeasts all across the world to many different game events, from Tokyo Game Show to Gamescom, and every time we do, like, just seeing these players playing it, seeing the smiles on their faces, it doesn't get better than that. It does not get better than seeing your players there in front of you in person, loving your game. And that's why we do it, for the love of it.
Yeah, it's really funny. I managed to earlier on get a character sort of stuck against another one who was just wiggling against a wall for ages, and it looked obscene but hilarious. It's lots of accidental fun.
Amazing.
Isn't intentional, I think. So it's obviously quite a technical challenge.
Yeah.
I'd imagine getting this many players running at once and getting Windows to work with that many controllers and all these things. What were the challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them in making this work?
Every time we built the new setup of this, the controllers will break, and we have to figure out a way to get 20 controllers working again. So we've had yesterday, I seem to remember we had 4 controllers working, and whenever we had a new controller, it would override the inputs of controller 1. A 6 controller would override the inputs of controller 2. And we had to basically take it back to basics. I don't know the technical details because I was not clever enough to fix it, but I think we even had to go into Unity, remap every single control. I know in the past, when we've had work built with this, we even had to go into the computer BIOS and rewrite the USB drivers.
Oh God.
It's gone that far. This one is slightly simpler than that. Like I said, I don't know the details, but I know it was difficult.
Yeah. So on that sort of note of just persevering and getting things done and making sure you finish it regardless of how hard it is, lots of people who follow this kind of content online want to be game developers or are getting into it themselves, that kind of thing. And one of the hardest things people find is to actually get stuff finished and shipped. So do you have tips for people out there? Any tips for them about how to sort of get through your game and get it out there, and to how to fine-tune your gameplay? Because this is very fun and very fine-tuned. How to make sure your game is actually fun.
So at Boneloaf, we follow the flow. We're quite lucky at Boneloaf in that, Gangbeasts is out there, and it's fortunate to provide us with like a stability as a game, So we've taken the kind of the ethos, the philosophy at Boneloaf that we will work until we're happy, until we're ready with it, right? And sometimes that means things take longer than expected. And we've constantly had to delay things, and we're okay with that. We're comfortable. But we have the luxury of doing that. That is not a luxury that everybody has. We understand that. I think for us, if there was a tip, like, having something like an exhibit like this, like, the date was locked in for this, like we had to work to get it out for this. It's not perfect. It's not exactly how we wanted it. But it has allowed us to make kind of big steps in progress. So there has definitely that. Whether that's a tip, I don't know, because sometimes that can lead to crunch. And we are a 0% crunch company. We do not want to do that. We really want to avoid that. So it's a tricky one, and I don't think I have a clear-cut answer for you. But I would just say keep working until you're happy.
Yeah, I think that is a good answer, though. So, like, as soon as you set a deadline, you've at least got something to work towards, and you won't be doing that infinite working out into space and tweaking incessantly.
It can help, but it can also hinder. So, you have to be careful. You have to find out what works for you.
And finally, what's the future for the game? And do you have any other projects planned coming forward? Are you going to keep working on this and pushing this?
We have not finished Gangbeasts. We still want to continue playing. It's been 10 years now, but we're not finished. We still have more stages to add. We have more costumes to add. We have lots of different plans, particularly adding like crossplay to the game. We really want to do that. We're going to keep building Gangbeasts. We do have other projects in the works, but they're early days. And we just like experimenting, basically, and we're in a really nice period where we can experiment with stuff like the 20-player build, with our Apple Vision Pro app that we released earlier this year as well, which is called Miko Test Laboratory. So we're in a really good space right now where we can just play around and stuff.
Amazing. Thank you very much for taking me through it.